What's up, everyone? It's Bones here. I'd like to begin this video by giving a huge shout out to TCG Player for the opportunity to be a part of their affiliate program. If you want to help a content creator out, all you have to do is click on the TCG Player link down below, and it won't cost you anything either. When I started this channel, I set out to try and help people from different backgrounds. Whether they were new to the game, returning, or had already played the game for a long time, I wanted to create a space where different types of people could enjoy and or grow through different deck ideas. That leads me to today's video. In 2010, Shonen Jump Championship Edison took place and would go on to become one of the most treasured retro formats in this game's history. With a tournament scene that's been popping back up lately and an official Konami backing, it felt hard to ignore continuing to not make content on it. And that brings me to the content of today's video. One of the first things that you'll notice is that I have an elemental hero Avion in my opening hand that you'll see momentarily, and it's actually a necessary combo piece for our loop. And we're going to start here by top decking the chain material. In Edison, you do get that extra draw, it's the old rules, but we'll then be able to activate the Gold Star, get into the second combo piece that we need, which is the Mass Driver. And I know that it's not necessarily a combo piece, but it's just one of the cards that we need in order to make our entire thing go. And we're going to then activate the Future Fusion, and this is pretty important because we're able to send the hero name to the graveyard, and in this case we get a water and a light. And Absolute Zero is a very important card in this format because of just how good it is and how little ways other decks have to play around it, especially since the old ruling means that even if it's returned to the extra deck face down, you still get the destruction since it still left the field, and the rules are different to today. But set 2 is we'll pass on to our opponent, and our opponent is going to normal summon the Lila, take care of the Future Fusion, which doesn't really matter to us as we're going to end up drawing the Terraforming, and this is great because it means that we can set the chain material. Next turn we'll get the driver along with the Future Fusion or the Fusion Gate. As our opponent is going to end up milling cards, they'll normal summon the Lumina. You won't really see overextension into 3 back row because back row are kind of like hand traps where they're the disruptions that can keep games going back and forth. But we're then going to see some mills as we're then going to go onto the end phase where we see the wolf, and then we'll be able to get the draw on our turn, which happens to be a card that we won't be using. On the standby phase we'll get our Mass Driver, activate the chain material, and this makes it so that anytime we fusion summon a monster this turn, we can remove from play from our side of the field, deck, hand, or graveyard fusion materials that are listed on the fusion monster card and use them as the fusion material. Of course, they can't attack during the turn that this card is activated, which really doesn't matter, but we're now going to be able to continue by activating the Terraforming, and now because we have the chain material live, the Fusion Gate will be able to banish from pretty much anywhere, as we're now going to bring out our Absolute Zero, use the effect of the Fusion Gate again since it's not a once per turn. We'll be able to banish all the vanilla elemental hero monsters, Bubbleman, Clayman, Burstinatrix, and the Avion, and I know that Bubbleman's not necessarily a vanilla, but it kind of is for this deck, unless you really do get the draw 2 off, which does happen sometimes in the games where you kind of have to play hero beat. But we're now going to be able to bring out the Electrum, and the cool thing about Electrum is that it allows you to put back all your banished cards into the deck, and the attack boost that you get from it really doesn't matter because we do have the Mass Driver here, and this is going to be the card that causes the loop, as you're going to see that we're going to put all our banished cards back into the deck, which means that we can continue to use the Fusion Gate. So we're going to then activate the Mass Driver, tribute off the Absolute Zero, get burn damage, along with being able to pop our opponent's board, and then we can use the Mass Driver again, popping the Electrum, and this will put 2 heroes in the graveyard, including a water, which means we can go back into our zero. Then we have the fusion materials back in deck for the Electrum, which means that we can bring out another copy of Electrum, and because we banished our Absolute Zero and Electrum for the second Absolute Zero, it means that we can put all these cards back into the deck / extra deck, and that makes it so that we can continue doing this loop. And again, I'll show it one more time so that you have an idea of how it looks, but we're going to continue here by using the Electrum, putting all the cards back, tributing off for the Mass Driver. We'll then be able to get access into our Absolute Zero via the 2 heroes in graveyard. As we'll get into the Absolute Zero, you see that I'm continuing going. You can go all the way down to 0, and with this I'll take you onto the deck profile. Looking at the deck profile, the first thing I would like to point out is that if you don't want to take the full-on consistency approach with the Legacy of Yada and the Jar of Greed, and would like to have some back row in order to play that hero beat style deck, when you don't happen to have your burn combo, that's an option that you can do, but I felt like potentially siding into your real cards in game 2 or 3 might be better. That said, you'll notice that there are a load of cards for consistency in this deck where we have the 3 jars, the 3 Yadas, draws, and the 3 upstarts, which is 9 draws. We then have the 2 gold sarks, which gets you into a mass driver. I like to consider it as 3 copies of the mass driver, just because we play our 3 fusion gate, the 3 chain materials, which are the main pieces of our combos, and usually you're banishing the mass driver since it's the only one of that we play. We then have the 2 miracle fusion, which I do think is important to play more than one. Play the real game of Yu-Gi-Oh! When you happen to not see your burn combo, and sometimes seeing this can make the extra difference, since Absolute Zero happens to be one of the better cards in this format, as it can be really hard to play around it for some decks. Now, you'll also notice how I do happen to play all the Jaden fusions with the combinations, and the reason that I do play them in this extra deck is because we don't use our extra deck except for these guys, and this one you may not really even make much too often. I do like the idea of being able to future fusion out your stuff and get those garnets out of the deck if you have to, though it is important to note that during games 2 and 3 where Crow may be more popular, banishing one of your Clayman, Burstinatrix, Avian, Bubbleman be detrimental to this deck strategy, as once it's banished, you don't have a way to get it back if you can't get into the Electrum. Going to get onto the card by card, and we have the 3 copies of Upstart, the 2 copies of Gold Sark, the 1 Mass Driver, the 2 copies of Miracle Fusion, the 1 copy of Stratos, the 3 copies of Alias, the 1 copy of Bubbleman, Clayman, Burstinatrix, Avian, the 1 copy of Ocean, which is just another water elemental hero that you can send. It also recurs one from the graveyard, which can be pretty important if you have to get back one of these guys for whatever reason. But then we have the 3 chain material, the 3 fusion gate, the 1 future fusion, the 1 Rhoda, the 3 terraforming, 2 dark bribe. The entire point of the dark bribe is so that you can assure that your win con goes off without being interrupted by one of your opponent's sets. So that's why you can also play potentially pulling the rug over the Shadow Imprisoning Mirror if you would like to. I just have the Shadow Imprisoning here because of Black Wings, which happens to kind of be the top dog in this format. Then we have the 3 Legacy, the 3 Jars, the 1 Torrential, the 1 Mirror Force, and the 1 Trap Dust Shoot to round out the main deck. The Cyber Dragon is for the Chimera tech. Being able to just out machines that way is pretty tough, as we'll also be able to out stuff like Card Troopers that our opponent may be on, which can bypass them getting the draw and is something that more decks than just machines play. We then have the Thunder King Ryo, another old solid card that was used in the early 2010s and definitely left its mark. Then we have the 2 DD Crows, the 1 Prohibition, the 1 Nobleman, the 1 Brain Control, the 1 Giant Trunade. I didn't want to play Heavy Storm because we do play a lot of back row, even if we do happen to play a lot of Jar of Greed and Legacy of Yatagarasu, which is all chainable. That said, you do want to be able to keep the back row that you may have to use so that you don't die while trying to get into your combo. Then we have the Mystical Space Typhoon, the Dust Tornado, the 2 copies of Oppression, which is just an insane card regardless of the format, and then we have the 2 Shadow Imprisoning Mirror, which again can be pulling the rug. We then have the 3 copies of Electrum, the 3 copies of Absolute Zero, and the 3 copies of Gaia. These are the absolute musts. The 1 Mudball Man, again future fusion target. We then have the 1 copy of Rampart Blaster, Flame Wingman, along with the Mariner, and the Steam Healer. Now, another cool thing that I would like to point out about playing these fusions is that there will be times where you're just actually playing Yu-Gi-Oh! And trying to stall 4 combo, and when you future fusion into one of your elemental heroes, get more options than just the Absolute Zero or the Gaia via playing these. And I just think that's cool because sometimes you can even end up stealing games with Flame Wingman off of just being able to destroy an opponent's monster by battle and get that final burn damage that you needed in order to secure that victory. Or there will be times where you just need the 3k defense in order to stall. The last card in the deck is Chimera Tech Fortress Dragon, and that'll wrap up the deck profile. So for everyone who's made it this far, I'd like to thank you for watching, and for the 700 plus subscribers. I truly appreciate your support, and now that we've monetized the channel, giving us access to supers and memberships means that more awesome stuff is on the horizon. To get the channel membership, just click on the description below, and there will be a link that takes you there. You'll also notice a free Discord link that I've made for us too. If you want to support me as a content creator, even if you can't donate supers or get a membership for the channel, clicking on those thumbs up and subscribe buttons help a lot too. For those wondering, I do plan on making updates to the channel as the support on the channel grows. Anyways, I hope to see you on the next one. It's Bones.